Hello, everybody. Welcome to WildCare. We are actually inside today with one of my very favorite, of course, they're all my favorite ambassadors, but this is Marla, the Western pond turtle, and she's hungry. Ooh.
So Marla came to us in 2015. We think her date of birth was in 1979, which would make her 41 years old.
That's crazy. Do you know how they estimate her age?
I would think that they would do it by just the size, her size, and probably some information from the lady who surrendered her to us. So there you go. There you go.
Yeah, Marla has kind of an interesting story.
She does. So as a young turtle here, a hungry girl today.
She is. She's so anxious.
Yeah, she's like, oh, look at it.
And she's so carnivorous. That's what I love about her. She has this sweet little face, and then she's like, chunky mouse bits.
So she came to WildCare in 2015, and what happened to her was she was rescued as a small turtle, and the lady thought that because she's missing part of her front left foot there, that she was injured, and actually ended up keeping her on her patio for many years. And the nice woman who had her was no longer able to care for her, so we were able to take her in and take care of her. So Western pond turtles are found in lakes, streams, ponds, marshes. You're seeing her eat some meat here. In the wild, they would eat insects, frogs, fish, little tadpoles. Very diet. But here she just has some meat. And you can see she's quite the little show.
Again, that sweet little face, and then she's
I know, and then and let me tell you, she doesn't let that missing foot there stop her from anything.
No, indeed. Oh, she's so funny. Marla is a really interesting case. Again, so she was found in the late 70s and was kept as a pet by the woman that rescued her, which we all know it would have been better to get her to a wildlife hospital, but I suspect there was not a wildlife hospital. In fact, I almost pretty much know that. So she was kept as a pet, and she's not able to be returned to the wild because she was in captivity for so long. But she is a very good example of why you have to really think hard before you decide to have a reptile pet. Like, obviously you would never want to keep a native wild animal as a pet, but if you were to buy an exotic wild animal at like a red-eared slider or something at a pet shop and decide that you wanted that to be your pet, with reptiles you really have to think about how long they live.
Yes.
I mean, she's 41, I'm 46. This turtle is almost as old as I am. That's pretty crazy. And so fortunately, the person that had her in care recognized that she would need ongoing care and was able to get her to us to have as an ambassador animal, which is wonderful for us, and I think good for Marlo as well. But really, it is a consideration if you decide to have a reptile pet, how long you're going to have that pet.
Yeah, they can live up to, I was reading this morning, they can live up to be 70 years old.
Can they really?
Yeah.
Western pond turtles can. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. As a species, though, they're found Washington all the way down to Baja, California.
Just West Coast? Yeah.
Yeah, just West Coast, and found in pockets, of course, of Northern California. They are threatened, and I was looking on U.S. Fish and Wildlife this morning to see if they had changed the status, but the status is up for review to do an endangered listing, which would give them all sorts of funding and grants and protection and studies. That would be important to get an accurate number of how many are left in the wild. Now, her coloring is a little bit different than what you would see in Western pond turtles.
They tend to be a little darker, don't they?
They're darker. What happened to her was she had shell rot. Shell rot can happen from improper diet or too much moisture, not enough moisture, different factors. And so that's why her shell's a little bit different colored than what you would see out in the wild. Here you go.
Yeah, I think of them as being a lot darker. We get a number of these guys into the wildlife hospital, and they almost always come in after having been hit by cars. They'll be crossing the road from one water source to another, or if they're males, maybe looking for a mate, and they'll cross the road and they'll get hit by cars. And just last year, we had an amazing story. A woman was driving to work in West Marin over by the cheese factory, the Nicasio cheese factory. If you're familiar with our area, that's a full spot over in West Marin. And she literally saw the turtle get hit by the car and get rolled. And she saw him kind of come out from underneath the car. And she's like, oh, no. And she was a WildCare supporter. She knew all about us. And she stopped, pulled over, rescued the turtle. He had a number of cracks on his shell, but she got him to us. And with the care he received in the wildlife hospital, you can actually see his story, and I'll post it on the posting as well. But you can see his story if you go to WildCare's website, discoverwildcare.org, and do a search for turtle. You will find his story. He was in care for months and months, and then we went back out to the cheese factory with him once he was recovered and ready to be released. And the lovely lady that had rescued him came out as well, and we all had we released him, watched him swim away, and then had a lovely glass of champagne and some cheese to celebrate his return to the wild. But we do get a lot of them. I know that they're on the threatened list because of habitat loss primarily, yes, and because of competition.
Right, red-eared sliders.
Correct.
Are very famous in the aquarium trade, and when people get bored with them, they'll put them out in the habitat of the western pond turtle, and they basically outcompete them.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because they're kind of they look like an easy pet to get, and people are like, oh yeah, we'll just get my kid a small turtle, and then we'll just have him for a little while, and then they're thinking, oh well, the kid's gone, to college, and he's not interested in the turtle anymore, and they release that animal into the wild, and it really is a problem. We did a joint, Marla, you are so funny. Apparently everyone wants to eat my phone.
Yeah, she's like,
trying to get some focus here. Oh my God, look at her.
She's great.
She is just the best thing ever. Look at her.
Telling you.
I think she sees my finger and thinks it's another chunk of mouse.
Yeah, she could. She's, it's usually the tiniest ones that we have the biggest personalities.
They totally do.
Marla is no exception.
She totally isn't. So funny. But anyway, we did a joint press release with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife talking about the dangers of releasing exotic pets into the native environment, because you're not doing the exotic animal a favor, and you're definitely not doing the resident wild animals a favor by adding a competitor to their territory, because you see that all the time in areas where it used to just be western pond turtles basking on the logs and doing turtle things. You instead will now have the red-eared sliders, because they are so much more competitive. Coming for us.
I know. Look at her. She's da-da-da-da-da-da. Little shark.
She's a little Chelonian shark. I love her eyes. Oh, she's so funny.
She's quite the personality.
I'm such a reptile person, and I have to say, she just is such a good example of how much personality these guys can have.
Yes, and she's, so western pond turtles also come up on land, and they come up land to lay their eggs, and they can have anywhere from 1 to 13 eggs. Usually those are laid May through August, and they get incubated for about 90 days, and then they hatch. And they're really tiny when they hatch. I mean, they're the size of a quarter.
God, how does something like that survive? That's crazy.
I know. And probably most of it is probably taken away by other predators,
Yeah.
If they discover the nest. She has a great sense of smell. Of course, that's what she's using there. She's quite intelligent. She definitely knows when I open the door, it's feeding time. She's great. And she has, I know, she's like, oh wait, no, I know there was something in there. Was there anything in there?
She said, we're just going to check again.
We're just going to check. Oh,
it's
wait,
like going back to the refrigerator.
Let me get the fingers.
I love the feeding technique. I assume that is pretty effective if you're going after a fish, or you're going after a...
Yes, and she's got quite the bite, too. I've been bitten by her.
Oh, I bet. Now, does she have teeth?
She does not. She has a beak, just like our tortoise does. And actually, her and Mojave hang out, so they're buddies.
Are they interested in each other?
No, they'll walk right over each other.
Oh, so funny.
It's pretty funny. She's got a really long tail here.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to tell the western pond turtle. So normally you'd see the dark shell, the pointy nose, those eyes are a good indication, and then that long tail, I feel, is another good way to determine if you're looking at a western pond turtle. If you're looking at a turtle in a lake or a pond, and you see red striping on the side of the head, that's going to be a red-eared slider. They're pretty distinctive. They're a different color as well. They tend to be a slightly different green, and that red striping on the side is a pretty good indicator that you're looking at an invasive released aquarium animal.
And they got some serious claws on them too on the back of their feet. And they've got really long legs too.
Oh, interesting. Well, they do a fair amount of walking, don't they?
They do, and she is a very fast swimmer.
Is she?
Yes, she can really book it if she gets a lot of water. But she's She has quite the little personality, isn't she?
She is. Look at her. Well, I hope everybody watching, now of course the light is covering her little face, sorry. Hope everybody watching has a new appreciation for how amazing Western pond turtles are. Of course, that is why WildCare has our wildlife ambassadors. These animals would not be able to survive in the wild for whatever reason. Marla's situation is that she was in captivity for so long. And they perform a real service by giving people an up-close look at their species and giving you a moment to really appreciate an animal that you may not actually have thought about before.
Yeah, and I think another addition to that, or benefit is that whatever we get in the hospital, so if we get a pond turtle, we can compare it to Marla.
Right.
So any species that we get in, you know, you can say, okay, well, what's our red-tailed hawk doing? What's our turkey vulture doing? Is that normal?
That's great knowledge for us to have. Absolutely.
So that can give us a comparison. So it helps us to take more in-depth care of the wildlife that comes through the hospital.
That is absolutely true, and then these guys perform such a great service in teaching children and adults about their species, about the risks that they face in the wild. This looks like a relaxation pose for her. Does she just kind of sit there with the bubbles?
This is the jacuzzi over here.
Oh, very nice.
So
zoom in on the jacuzzi here.
So this is her jacuzzi. She's got a little underwater cave over there. Her water is at 82 degrees, so she has the water at the perfect
jacuzzi temperature for a turtle.
Yes. I know, isn't she just? She's just really fascinating. I mean, she's one of the funnest animals to watch.
Look at her. Just sit and watch her all day, and you can tell she's watching us too. I mean, she is very interested in what we're doing. For she's probably wondering why we're not feeding her anymore. But
she's like,
I assume she has a pretty limited, or not a limited diet, but a measured diet.
Yeah, because she doesn't have a large area like a Western pond turtle would be in the wild. You know, she can't work off that much food, or you know what I mean, like work off the calories, I guess.
Correct. Yeah.
And so we have to measure her food per week, and she gets fed twice a week.
Okay.
Reptiles, of course, you don't have to feed them every day because they have very slow systems and digestion, so it's not necessary. But yeah, she eats twice a week, and it's always a fun time to feed, as you can see.
Sure is. Well, I consider us very lucky to have caught this last feeding. Marla, you're wonderful. Melissa, you're wonderful as well.
Thank you.
Everybody join us again tomorrow. I think we're having Grace the Red-tail tomorrow. We're having a red-tailed hawk tomorrow. So join us tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time for our next live stream. And visit us online at discoverwildcare.org. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.